maybe parents want us to become doctors. Can you think of a job that's, I don't know, man, can you think of a job that's less interesting than being a doctor?
What's up?
A janitor? Even then.
What's
like,
really? Oh, an office worker.
Office worker? I'm thinking, like, if you're a doctor, what do you do all day? Like a general practitioner. Think about what a general practitioner. How many of you guys have been to the doctor before? Now, how long? What happened in that visit? What did they do? The actual doctor themselves.
They ask you your symptoms. Check up on you a little bit.
They don't even check your blood. They have the nurses do that.
Yeah.
So the doctor walks in. They go, "Hi, AJ." Yeah, they have these. They have papers, and they put, no. If you went in there for, I don't know, if you were in there because you had the sniffles, and they go, "Okay, you have a cold," and then what do they do after that?
Prescribe you.
What for a cold?
A medicine for cold.
For a cold, they want. For a cold, they'll just be like, so drink plenty of fluids. If you need to get some aspirin to bring down the fever, you should be okay within 2 weeks. And then they walk out. And then they go into the next observation room. And they ask him, so what's going on? They put on some gloves. I have the sniffles. Okay. You have a cold. Drink plenty of fluids. Take aspirin to reduce the fever. You should be fine within 2 weeks. Okay. And they go into the next observation room. What's wrong? This one's different. I have a cough. Okay. You have a cold. Drink plenty of fluids and take aspirin to reduce the fever. I mean, the typical physician, think about what they do in the course of a day. Next time you're in the doctor's office, just ask yourself, would you want to do that for 8 hours a day? What they're doing. And you might think like, it's a lot of money. Yeah, it is a lot of money, but do you want to go through, all those years of medical school, all that training, the residency, the internships, go through all of that so that you can walk room to room to room and ask people what's wrong and then tell them to drink water and take aspirin? I mean, again, it's a lot of money, but man, it's monotonous. It's the same thing over and over and over again.
It's a waste of my life.
What's that?
It's a waste of my life.
It can feel that way, certainly. If you're someone like if you're a surgeon and you actually get to repair people, there maybe is something that's cool there because you can see the results of a person comes into your office and they're on crutches or in a wheelchair, and then the last time they leave, they're jogging out. Maybe you can see something there where there's some kind of progress. You've impacted someone's life significantly. Even like a physical therapist can see the same kind of a thing. But I don't know. I mean, I just think of a physician, and when I've gone in there, I've just wondered, man, is there anything that would have me swinging from a rope faster than if I was a physician? Probably. Again, like a general practitioner, I don't know that there is. And we have to console ourselves with this idea of money. And of course, why is it that we would be pursuing that thing? Personal preference, I don't know, imposed lives. But understand that when we do that now, money now becomes the substitute for whatever else we would be doing in life. So would you rather have money, or would you rather have impact on people around you? Would you rather have money, or would you rather make a difference in the world? Would you rather have money, or would you rather have some kind of like purpose? Because when you're doing something like that, you might, because it's difficult to say, well, no, but I'm making the world better, I have a purpose because I'm healing the world. You're healing the world from a cold? You're healing the world from bronchitis or the flu? Not really so much, because you're not really intervening. If the person comes to you and they follow the advice that you give them, then they'll be over the cold within a week. If they never come to you and they never follow the advice, they're over the cold in like 2 or 3 weeks. It's just a matter of length of time at that point. It isn't like you've now kind of changed the course of a human being's life. And then, especially as a general practitioner now, if you do find something that's pretty significant, you take those results and you go, wow, something else is going on. Let me send you to a specialist. And then the specialist can take over, and the specialist deals with just that thing, throughout the day. So, I mean, so just understand that money now becomes a proxy for all of these things, if that makes sense. Now start to think about your life generally as that whatever it is that you're doing in your life, it's now become a proxy for these other things. So, for example, I guess I'll mention because we're in school, but if you're, I don't know, let me think. I want to hit on the same example, but I guess I will. For example, if you're on your phone during the class, Think about what it is now that you've replaced that thing with. It's become a proxy for something else. Could you have learned something if you were paying attention? Maybe. You'll never know, because you may have missed it. It's like very oftentimes I'll say something in class, even if it's just like, okay, grab some papers, and then someone's sitting there, and then all of a sudden they look up and I go, wait, what are we doing? What if I had just given you the key to the meaning of life? Oh, but what are the odds that you would have? Not very high. But it isn't so much, by the way, what I say to you. It isn't that I'm coming to you with some great wisdom. It isn't that I'm coming to you and telling you this is the meaning of life, this is the purpose of life. What's going to happen is I'm going to say something like, I don't know, I mean, I guess the money that you make is a proxy for your purpose in life. And I'm just going to say like one sentence. That's all it's going to be. And I won't even mean it in any way. But it's going to hit you in some way because of your other life experiences, because of something that somebody else has said to you. That you're going to take that little bit of information and insert it, and you're going to create some level of meaning out of it. So that now this is the thing that changes your life. It isn't that I change your life. It isn't that what I said changes your life. It's that you took something that was said by some random person you came across in your life because a counselor put my name on the schedule, and then you create a meaning in your life because of that one thing that you heard. But if you never heard it, then you would never have been changed in that way. So what is it that you miss? I don't know. Maybe you miss nothing. Maybe you miss the most life-changing bit of information, the most life-changing 3 or 4 words that you ever could have heard in your life goes past you. And if I were to ask you, what were you doing what were you looking at right there when I said that? If we could go back in time and rewind it. And I wonder if you could say what you're looking at, or if it was just, I was checking, I don't know, I forgot what it was. Yeah. Of course, by the way, maybe the thing that you encountered on that phone is the thing that changed your life. And if you hadn't been on your phone, if you'd been paying attention in class, maybe you'd have missed that thing that changed your life on your phone. I don't know. I don't know. That's the crazy trip about life. It's that we never know. You know, so much of our life is geared towards. In Becker's book, he's taught again. The book is called The Denial of Death, and his book is geared towards this idea that so much of what we do in life is we do under the pressure, the subconscious pressure of being aware of our own mortality. Why is it that we do the things that we do? Why is it that we seek meaning and purpose? It's because you know that you're mortal. You know that you're going to die. And you walk around with it constantly in the subconscious part of your brain. I don't think about it exactly. It's in the subconscious part of your brain. It motivates all of your actions. And you start to look at some of the things that we do in life, and if I ask you, why do we do these things? It just doesn't make any sense unless you understand it in that kind of a context. So for example, think about the kinds of things that you want to do in life, and a lot of times we say things like, oh, I want to travel, I want to get a big house, I want to have a car, and yet, and if that's the thing that you want, think about the ways in which we actually operate in life. Instead of pursuing those things, people will then instead have families, which now absorb your resources and stop you, and create a level of responsibility that stops you from being able to go and do those kinds of experiences in life. How is it that we live under this intense contradiction? I want to do these things, and yet this is the thing I'm going to pursue. And in that case there, it's because we understand that if you have a family, you're passing your genes on. In some way, you still exist. It's so odd to think about that. Like, I mean, your families go back thousands of, 3,000 generations? 3,000 generations has led you to here. At some point, there was somebody walking around the savannah, and carrying a spear, or maybe not even a spear, and just kind of looking around, being like, looking up at the sky and seeing these stars. And then imagine if they could fast forward and see where we are today. I wonder how they feel about us. We're wearing hoodies and sitting in desks. We're not staring up at the skies anymore. But it's 1,000 generations that have led us to where we are right now. And so in some way, those people who wandered the savannah, they're still alive right now. At least in a sense. Maybe not conscious, but metaphorically. And that's why we have this deep desire and drive to pass ourselves forward. And some people don't have that. And I think what you're going to find is that people who don't have that desire to have children, there's probably something deep there that's almost like a denial of self, maybe a seeking of self-annihilation in certain ways. This desire to just kind of go away because maybe there's some sort of an awareness that, or at least a perception that they have that other people don't have. So we might think it's a strange thing, it's an odd thing. And so instead of having a family though, what do people then cover it up with? Experiences. What's that?
Pets.
Pets. Yeah, maybe pets. I mean, fur babies as we call them now because, those are our children, people will say. My dogs are my children. That sounds very fulfilling. and the cool thing about having your pets as children is you get to have new children every 9 or 10 years. Unless you let your cats go outside, then you get new children every 5 to 6 years. And then we miss them so much, and then we replace them the next day, or 2 days later or so. I wonder how many of our parents would sit there and go, man, I wish you were a cat. You get a new one of you at PetSmart. You could have a PetSmart, there's like a little kid sitting there, and they're looking at you like, can I swap these out? Can I trade them in like a car? Yeah, they'll cover them up with pets, they'll cover them up with experiences, we'll cover it up with stuff. Because there's no awareness that we have, again, that we are solitary. So you come into this world and you're entirely and you're completely alone. Except for that doctor, the specialist, who's in the room with you, I guess, and then your parents. Someone said to me, we're born and we die the exact same way, screaming in terror. But you come into life and you're aware, though, that you're one person, and you're just like this one node. And whatever there's 7.5 billion people on the planet, so you become aware that you're one of just 7.5 billion other people. And so as much as we say things to you like, you're unique, you're special, you matter, we like to hear that because that gives us a sense like somehow we matter. But what we're actually deeply aware of is the fact that we don't. And I wonder how many of you already have that feeling that when you're sitting in the classroom, it's like, I'm just in a classroom with 27 other people. I'm just one student of 27 other students. How much do I matter? And that's just one classroom. And now you can multiply that out by the school, which is like, what, 2,400 students, something like that, 2,400 students? And then you can multiply that out by San Diego, is it 3 million? San Diego, and so forth. And you can see how when you look at yourself in this grand scheme of things, you become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's just you by yourself, wandering around in the universe. So what do? How do we make ourselves matter? How do we make ourselves have meaning? Well, one of the ways is we now say, oh, I'm one of Scout's students. So now I'm one of 28 altogether. Oh, I go to Sweetwater. Okay, now I'm one of 2,400. In other words, I'm not just one now, I'm 2,401. I'm not just one now, I'm 28. I'm not just one now, I'm from San Diego. I'll even get the San Diego tattoo just so people know San Diego. You understand that people write cities on their names. If you don't know why people write cities on their bodies, this is why. It's an unconscious drive to connect themselves to something larger than themselves. So now, I'm one of 3 million, and now 3 million and one now with me. You have you become a member of a political party. However many people that are in that political party. If you're a Democrat or Republican, that's where people usually go because those are the biggest movements. Join yourself the biggest group. Now I matter because I'm part of a bigger group. But understand that in order to do that, just like in order to do all these other things, you're having to give up something of yourself. For example, some of you, when we had these conversations, there's only a very small handful of you guys who participate. And I imagine there's far more of you who have ideas, and I know this, and because I get messages from some of you guys. Throughout the semester, I get messages from my students who will say, "Hey, Scout, I don't know if you know who I am. I'm in your 4th period class." It's always sad when it begins that way. I don't know if you know who I am. Yes, I know who you are. I don't call you by name. Why? Do I know most of your names? Yes. Why don't I call you out by name? Because you are making yourself known by name. I figure you want to meld into the group. You don't want me going around calling you out and hey, I figure you don't want me pulling popsicle sticks with your names on it to draw you out. If you wanted, I imagine you have something to say. But if you wanted to say it, I imagine that it shouldn't take a popsicle stick to get you to say it. And I don't want to humiliate, embarrass, or anything like that. I mean, I'm an introvert by nature, so I operate that way. I get these emails from students who will say, hey Scott, I don't know if you know who I am, but I'm in your 4th period class. Just want to say, I have a lot to say about the things that we talk about, and I really enjoy the talks, but I'm really shy. And so I just appreciate the talks that we have. That's all it is, just to say I appreciate the talks that we have, and the person wants to let me know that they're just too shy to speak. Okay? And so I imagine most of you have something to say. But how many of you actually say something? Like 3 or 4 of you in here. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I wish more of you talked, because the more you guys talk, the less I would. That would make my day easier. Less work for me. But anyway, the point is that you join yourself to that group, though. And but by doing that, you also kind of sink a little bit into oblivion. You have to give up some of your individuality, because even though you may have something to say right now, the fact that you're in a group means that you don't say it, which means that a part of you never enters the world. If you have an idea right now that's going through your head and you don't say it, that idea is part of you, but it's only existing right here in a non-physical way. Once you actually speak it and you say something, you create sound waves. It physically enters the world, what it is that you're saying. You literally change the material fabric of the world when you speak. I'm not saying all of a sudden the earth goes and turns, but you literally change the material fabric of the earth and therefore the universe, of course, when you speak. And when you don't do that, that part of you never enters the world. And so that means that all of you never manifests in the world, which means that only part of you ever enters the world. And I guess it's worth thinking about what part of you enters the world. Is it the part of you that you want to represent you? Is it the deepest parts of yourself? Is it the stuff that really could have made a difference in someone's life? Is it the thing that would have stood in place of something else, that if you had spoken, somebody else would have heard it and it would have changed the direction and the course of their lives? Or is it something that even if you had said it, saying it out loud would have hit you differently than when you're saying it here? And it would have maybe guided and directed your life in different ways. I don't know. So we join ourselves to these things, but we also give up parts of ourselves in order to belong to these groups. Even if you join a club, you love a certain sports team, whatever it is, man, there's all kinds of ways in which we join ourselves to larger groups. And of course, probably the most common one is to create a family, to literally pass parts of ourselves down through generations. And that way we know that when we leave the planet, at least in our conscious sense, at least we know that something of us is still around, that it wasn't all for nothing. People who don't have that, and I guess you can ask them, what do you leave behind? What is it? And a lot of times it's maybe they made a building. I helped build downtown San Diego. Some of those skyscrapers, I helped build those. Will those be there in 200 years, 100 years? Parts of you maybe will. That's one of the reasons it's so tragic when you hear someone who just dies in a really stupid way. It's the beginning. I think I told you a story that I knew somebody whose cousin proposed to somebody in the morning. He was with his girlfriend for a few years. He went and proposed to her in the morning before going on his way to work, and she said yes. And he was excited, and he goes to leave, and as he was leaving, he just jumped off the curb into the street, a curb. And when he landed, he just landed weird. He fell, slipped back, hit his head, and he died on the curb.
God damn.
Right? And you sit there and go how many thousands of generations led to this dude laying in the street? You're supposed to be the peak, man. You're supposed to be the pinnacle of evolution. You're supposed to be the top of your gene line. And you fell this way, you died this way. And imagine if that's the only kid that his parents had. That's the end of his line. Thousands of generations now squashed out. Those ancestors who hunted tigers so you could live, or so you could die on the curb. So it's true, man. You only live once, but maybe don't be so cavalier with it. Maybe be more thoughtful with it. Maybe live it in a way that's worthy of you, and is worthy of the sacrifices that people have made to put you where you are. Some of you guys, man, I don't mean to be an asshole, but I gotta say it, man. Some of you guys, your parents have worked way too hard for you to be as lazy as you are. Your parents have sacrificed too much and have worked too damn hard for you to sit there and ignore so much of the world. You're put in such an incredible, we like to call other people privileged, Some of you are sitting there in the most incredibly privileged positions in the world. You don't even notice it because your parents have sacrificed in a way to put you where you are, to give you the things that you have. And of course, that's one of the ironies of life too, isn't it? That the things that we get in life are exactly the things that stop us from living life. The things that we get in life are the things that distract us from the meaningful and important things of life. There's this old story about a guy wandering through the jungle, and he sees a tiger. The tiger sees him, probably saw him first, and he goes running away from the tiger. The tiger's pursuing him. As he's running through the jungle, he approaches a cliff, and as he reaches the end, he looks down, and at the bottom is a couple hundred feet of a drop. At the bottom, rocks. If he goes down the edge of that cliff, he's dying. So he turns to try to run from the cliff, and as he turns, the tiger is crouched right there, encircling him, ready to pounce. Either way he goes, he's going to die. So he turns, he lowers himself down the cliff to try to scale it, and he finds a vine. And so he grabs hold of this root, this deep root, and he's holding onto it, and he tries to lower himself down. And the tiger now approaches the cliff and is looking down at him. He looks down, and he sees the rocks beneath him. And just as he's looking around, trying to find some way out, he sees a couple of berries are growing from the edge of the cliff. And he looks and goes, "Those are some really pretty berries." If you understand that, you understand some important things about life. I guess I would ask you, what are the berries that you're staring at in life? What are the things that are distracting you from getting about the really important issues? It's fateful and ironic how the lie we need in order to live dooms us to a life that's never really ours. The things that we stare at, those pretty little berries, are the things that stop us from living the life that we otherwise would have chosen. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?
There was a lot today.
Happy Thursday. Yeah, I hope so.